Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
Certainly the pain points that were out there before are only accelerating: labor, food costs.
Food service can be a really tough business, and everybody in that world knows the importance of operating efficiently, providing a quality product, and always prioritizing the customer experience. Well, today's company, with its impressive roster of brands, offers solutions that help with all of that.
We're really helping our customers not on one piece of equipment at a time, but a whole breadth of solutions.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. My guest today is Tim FitzGerald, the CEO of the Middleby Corporation, which trades on NASDAQ under the symbol MIDD. Middleby is a worldwide manufacturer of solutions for the commercial kitchen, as well as residential indoor and outdoor appliances and systems for industrial processing, packaging, and baking. Tim was named CEO in 2019. Before that, he served as Chief Financial Officer, a position he held since 2003. Since joining Middleby over 25 years ago, Tim has been heavily involved in company-wide strategic decisions and has led acquisition and business development activities, contributing in large part to building their portfolio of over 120 brands. Today, Middleby is in the process of several key initiatives focused on long-term value creation, and Tim's going to walk us through all of it. So let's enter the arena with Tim FitzGerald. You know, Tim, maybe you can share like an overview of Middleby's history. You've obviously been with the company for a really long time, but maybe give us a timeline when the company started, maybe how the company's evolved over the years.
So I joined in 98. Back at that time, we were just a couple of brands, Middleby Marshall and South Bend, which were our longstanding cooking brands, really well known in the industry, but we were a very small niche provider. And I had been with Anderson Consulting prior to that, so it was a client of mine, but it was really a great industry where I saw a lot of opportunities. So I was excited to join. We kind of embarked on a strategy of rolling up the industry. So, what we'd done over a long period of time was acquire leading brands and technologies, and really what continues to be our core today, which is cooking and holding, which is really kind of the heart of the kitchen. So, over the 20 plus years since then, we really added, I would say, a lot of the best known brands in the commercial food service industry, which served us well. And I think we've had a terrific operating management team over that time that really knew the industry extremely well. So we're really able to position those companies well in terms of kind of driving their operations, but really making sure that they were focused on continued innovation. So over a long period of time, we really built up a great portfolio of brands. We extended into food processing and the residential side of the business as well, really in kind of those core cooking areas, and built also adjacent leading platforms in those areas.
And so the company as it stands today, and this is prior to a lot of the things that you're going to be doing in 2026 and certainly the JV that was announced recently, but maybe take us through those three segments in a deeper dive one by one. What are they? Who are the customers? What do you do there?
I'll start really, which is kind of our heart and soul and the core of the business, which is commercial food service. So we're the leader in cooking and warming, again, which we think of as the heart of the kitchen. We've more recently expanded into ice and beverage, which is also really a critical and important category to our customers. So, I think a lot of the strategy is making sure that we're really addressing what is the most important parts of the kitchen. And I think we can add the most value to our customers there. And from a financial standpoint, that's kind of where the highest ROI is to the customer as well. So helping our customers helps us as well from a financial return standpoint. With food processing, we got into relatively early as well. So 2005, we had seen that a lot of the things that we knew really well on thermal processing applied in the food processing areas as well. So in particular, the baking segment and protein processing.
Yep.
So, we also built a great platform. There's about 40 brands today in food processing. We are a leader in those two areas, baking and protein. Again, similar strategy. We've got a lot of the industry-leading brands, and the platform's really developed over that period. And then residential, that's kind of our newest foray, and we got into it with an iconic brand with Viking.
Yep.
We're big into ovens and ranges on the commercial food service side of the business. So really, we took some of our core expertise in product innovation and manufacturing, and really brought that into, professional cooking within the home. And we built a really unique portfolio of iconic brands in residential. There's about 12 brands there. It's kind of a unmatched set of brands and products that we're offering into the residential segment.
Yeah, and then maybe you can just start with food processing, which has obviously been publicly announced. You're going to spin that. Maybe talk about the rationale behind that. Why is that going to create value for shareholders, and when do you think it's going to happen?
It's with the journey that we've been on. If it wasn't for Middleby, none of these platforms would have been developed. But as you kind of get to a point in the journey, some of these platforms are better off on their own, frankly. Still our core commercial food service business is the heart of the business. And I'll say food processing, and I'm sure we'll hit on residential as well. They don't get the attention and the love, and I'll say the resources they need. And they are now scaled.
Yep.
And really ready to be kind of on their own. So, I think, the board and certainly myself, concluded that now that we've scaled these businesses, now that they are best in class, they've got industry-leading margins, the portfolio has been built, they're ready to accelerate. And it really will be great for those businesses because they will be on their own journey and a path to growth, which I think is going to be an exciting next chapter for food processing and residential. It'll also allow us to focus on our commercial business as well, because while we've been scaling those businesses, commercial has so many opportunities.
Yeah.
And we've grown in scale as well. So, management in each of those segments really needs to be focused. So it's going to allow us to focus on each of those businesses so they can accelerate growth. And from a shareholder standpoint, I think, as we've built these businesses, it's hard to understand all of the drivers of those businesses, where they're at in their journey, what are the market dynamics, what are some of the strategic and critical investments that we've made. So I think this clarity of the story for each of those pieces, I think will allow us to really unlock shareholder value and engage with shareholders in a different way so they can really understand the benefits of where we're at with each of those platforms.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I believe, Tim, we're sitting here in December of 2025. This is something that, in your best estimation, is going to take place mid-year 2026 to give you enough wiggle room.
Correct. Yeah. Food processing we've announced, and we're working diligently towards that spin, and we're well on our way. So the plan is being executed too.
So on top of the spin, and you alluded to this, I know you recently announced a joint venture with affiliates of 26 North. You sold 51% stake in the residential kitchen business. Again, maybe take us through the rationale behind that. I know you have a lot of confidence in that business. This transaction allows you to benefit from that over the long run. Take us through the thought process, the value creation, and how investors should think about it.
Yeah, it's a very exciting transaction. I kind of think of it as a win-win-win. The residential platform has been scaled enough, but it's still in early stages, and it's also at a different cycle than what we're experiencing in our more commercial, industrial, and restaurant cycles. So being in a semi-private environment is better for that business right now to ride out the cycle. Also, I think with a great partner with 26 North, we'll be able to make some off-cycle investments, which I think was going to accelerate growth and shareholder value over the next 3, 4, 5 years that business will benefit from. And given that we own 49% of that company going forward, our shareholders will also be able to benefit from. So we're very fortunate to find a great partner. Also with, the selling of the 51%, the proceeds from that transaction is going to allow us to reinvest in our own company, including with, we've been doing recent share buybacks, which are very attractive to us right now, and ensure that the balance sheet's in a really strong place as we execute on the food processing spin.
That's a really good point, Tim. There was one kind of overriding value creation theme that we didn't talk about up until now, and you just mentioned it, which is you've publicly stated you're going to allocate the vast majority of free cash flow to share repurchases. When you say, you're manufacturing, to me, that's like low margin, skimpy free cash flow margin, stuff like that. You're actually a huge generator of cash. What is the business model that allows you to do that? And then maybe talk about, you bought, I think, $500 million worth of stock in 2025, and that's something that obviously with the proceeds of the 26 North deal, you'd be able to improve upon.
I would say it's been kind of one of the hallmarks of Middleby over a long period of time is our cash generation ability and consistent growth in that area. I think it's a handful of items that's kind of part of our thesis and core strategy, which is if you buy leading brands in great product categories that you're delivering an ROI, you can generate high EBITDA margins, which we do. And while we reinvest in the business, certainly from a CapEx standpoint, it is a pretty capital light model as well. So, we've got kind of a high return of free cash flow. And that's really been the engine for us to allow to reinvest in the business, which for a long period of time was acquisition. So despite the fact that we bought over 100 brands over the last 20 years, you rarely saw Middleby get levered over 3 times. And that's really because of that machine. And I think, as we've kind of looked at our recent valuation as well and all the investment opportunities that we see out there, we kind of think the best opportunity is Middleby ourselves and to, invest in the company. So, hence over the last year or so, we've really stepped up what our buyback policy is and continue to see a tremendous amount of value in the portfolio that we've already built, with a lot of the new products and innovations and I'll say game-changing things that we think are going to be rolling out in the next few years.
How does Middleby differentiate itself from competitors? When people ask you, hey, what's your competitive advantage in the marketplace? How do you answer that question?
It's kind of multifaceted. I think the whole portfolio has really been built on leading brands and product categories. So that was very strategic in how we've formed the platform over, a long period of time. So I think we kind of start with hopefully an unfair advantage there. I think then we've got a very commercial approach to the marketplace. I think, we're very customer-centric. We understand the customer. We understand how we add value. And I think as we acquire companies, it's very long-term focused. We want to make sure that we are making those companies stronger and our business platform stands the test of time. But then how do we ensure that we are accelerating growth and leveraging scale of Middleby? So I think that's an area that we've really focused on and accelerated the last several years of how do we step up innovation and how do we create unique approaches to the marketplace as our go-to-market strategies, which because of the size and scale of Middleby and the strength of the brands and our customer connectivity, we don't really think others can do the same. I think it's a very exciting and interesting period of time for the commercial restaurant industry, even though it's a challenging period right now. Because I think when we come out of it and things start to turn back up, the heavy lifting that we've been doing the last few years is really going to kind of show up in spades.
Why does everybody think things just go up and to the right forever, right? There's cycles in everything. And I think, honestly, kidding aside, you've really invested in the platform and, things turn, things go in cycles. And I think you have tremendous leverage to the upside when that turn in the industry happens. Tim, maybe talk about, you talk broadly about innovation. Maybe talk specifically about some of the product innovations that Middleby's introduced recently.
Yeah. The last 5 years, we've probably invested more heavily, and really the last 3, because we had to kind of survive COVID with everybody else. We've probably invested more in innovation than any period of the company's history. We've got some awards to kind of demonstrate some of the winnings on that as well. We've won, I think, 22 awards over the last 18 months in a whole variety of product categories: ice, beverage, automation, certainly our core cooking and warming technologies as well. So we invested heavily in control technology, invested heavily in connectivity in our IoT platform. We've invested heavily in automation. We think these are the things that are going to really drive value for our customers in the future. And you really see that making its way into a lot of the products that we have, whether it's coffee, our new dispensing solutions in our beverage category, a lot of our, long-term core categories such as fryers. We've got unique automated grill technology, and we follow a lot of trends as well. Ventless and electrification is one of the big ones. So ventless, we lead the industry in ventless technology, and certainly a lot of new products that have come out in that category as well over the last few years.
Yeah, Tim, you mentioned kind of smart technology. What are the types of things that your technology is going to enable the restaurant owners to do with that kind of smart technology?
I think the restaurants have been slower to adopt technology, at least in the back of the house.
Yep.
But if you look operationally, it's one of the biggest pain points as well. So labor, I'll say, making sure that they're staying true to their operational protocols. So training is a big issue, which when you've got connectivity, can help with that as well. Energy management, food safety. But I think, overall, just having visibility into the kitchen, most of the restaurants, even some of the large restaurant chains that you would expect to have that, it's really a blind spot. And so, I think when you start to pull data out of the kitchen, and you can pull data in a lot of different ways, there's a lot of learnings there, and those learnings have ROIs that are behind them. But we can help in labor, uptime, speed of service, menu management, food safety, maintenance of equipment, serviceability. So there's a lot of payback opportunities, and it can be applied, very differently from operator to operator, depending on kind of what their restaurant operation looks like.
In recent years, sustainability has become a huge topic in the food service industry. I wanted to know from Tim how Middleby's products can help companies lower their environmental impacts and operate in a more energy efficient manner.
Yeah, I would say that's somewhat table stakes. We've been doing that for a long time. So, I think every year when our teams are thinking about what their pipeline is and what's game-changing for our operators, energy, and I'll say other aspects of sustainability, food waste being one that's really growing. We do have energy management monitoring in there as well. So really looking at the restaurant and having KPIs and being able to measure why certain restaurants are performing better or how you're doing relative to your competitors.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one of the benefits of having scale of Middleby. The Middleby one-touch control that we've put on all of our high-tech products, you have a similar look, feel, interface, interaction with the user. You kind of train once and you kind of know how to use all the equipment, and then you've got protocols of how to pull the data out. But then we send it to our platform. Our platform is called Open Kitchen. That did not exist 5 years ago. We bought a leading IoT company and then we launched our own platform. But one of the things that's exciting about it, it is, as kind of our team calls it, one pane of glass, right? Because everybody goes into, IoT and you can be bombarded with, hundreds of different solutions and different user experiences and KPIs. We're really the only provider out there that can provide one platform. And this is why it's called Open Kitchen.
Yeah.
Because it can hook into all of our equipment, whether it's beverage, whether it's ice, whether it is cooking. It can also hook into competitors' equipment. So it is a platform as opposed to having an individual piece of equipment hooked up that's connected.
Yeah.
So it's a huge benefit to our operators, and it's very scalable. So it's got a high ROI. And it's been a big investment for us, but I think we're far ahead of, I'll say, others that are out there because of the investments that we've made and the fact that it is such a scalable platform.
Yeah. Exciting stuff. And I know another thing, Tim, that you've worked on very hard and you're excited about is kind of the go-to-market strategy. Maybe you can talk about what that used to be and kind of how that has evolved at Middleby today.
If you were to go back, I'll say about 5 years ago, you would, one of the great things about Middleby is our decentralized platform being very entrepreneurial and have people who really knew their brand, their product, extremely well. And we still have that today. But then we kind of went to what was the next chapter. How do we really leverage the scale and how do we provide customers a different and enhanced experience? And how do we really bring, I'll say, game-changing innovation to our customers at a more accelerated rate? And so we invested in digital because now education and awareness is digital. But we also invested in our innovation centers because we needed to be hands-on and we needed to have culinary teams.
Yep.
We also needed to leverage and be more strategic about how we worked with our sales team and our channel partners. So created teams and capabilities around that. And then how do we really engage with end users, particularly large chains, in a different way? So we've got a team that surrounds our brands and works hand in hand with each of those brands to bring them into new channels, into new customers, accelerate their products kind of going into the right areas in the marketplace. So a lot of tools and teams that did not exist before. And I'll say kind of the last piece of that is service, which is also part of go-to-market, because it's not just the how do you educate and bring customers a great product, but then how do you kind of stand alongside them with the journey, which is really ROI.
Yeah.
And I'll say that, for me, that's what I would call the holy grail, which we're still working on, of making sure that we can have a connected, digital, scaled experience where we're really helping our customers not on one piece of equipment at a time, but a whole breadth of solutions, and maybe tell them what's going on in their kitchen before they know what's gone wrong, and let them know what's going right as well.
You'll have the data to tell them what's happening, but it's a good point. Partnering over the long term is so critical for your customers, but it's also critical for you and how it kind of shapes maybe the product roadmap at Middleby. What's happening kind of right now in restaurant and food service that might be shaping your product roadmap as you look out a few years?
Certainly the pain points that were out there before are only accelerating, which I'll say labor, food costs are at the top of the list. And labor is not only cost, but it's availability and its efficiency. So making sure that we've got equipment that can address those needs. But I think a couple of other things, ice and beverage are becoming a more important category as our customers are thinking about how do they drive more traffic into their existing store.
Yep.
Locations. Beverage is a big attraction right now. And I'll say our vision is, exists of products that we are developing and launching right now of how do you have a better beverage experience? How do you have more automated beverage experience? How do you have offerings that did not maybe exist before that are very unique on the menu? So we've made a lot of investments in those areas, both through acquisition and through organic. So that's been relatively new on the roadmap. Middleby was not in ice and beverage 5 years ago, and now it's a third of our platform.
Unbelievable.
And it's still at an infancy stage. I think, restaurant operations are looking different as well. They are also engaging with their customers in a digital way.
Yep.
In terms of how ordering, how do they market to those customers? And then delivery, drive-through, takeout, how do they engage with those customers when they get to the store? Or maybe it is a DoorDash or an Uber Eats driver as well. So it changes the dynamics of what a footprint looks like, what an efficient store looks like. So a lot of our equipment, which is smaller footprint, more flexible, faster speed of service, we're able to touch on kind of a lot of the points that help them get to their vision and the things that we know they need to address in their restaurant operations.
The processing spin and the JV and all of this is super exciting. You're going to have the commercial business, which has so much potential, and you've been doing this a really long time. When you look out over the next 5 years, what do you see as the most interesting or significant opportunities for Middleby?
So even though I always, had said Middleby is always a new company every 3 to 5 years, we're always in constant change from where we started, which was very small beginnings as a micro cap. I think we were like $25 million market cap, one brand, and we were a small player in the industry. And then we rolled up a lot of the industry and, done a lot of exciting things over time, extended into different, categories.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is an exciting period to unlock value with now the things that we've created over the last couple decades of these 3 different platforms that I think are all in a very different way positioned for an exciting journey ahead. I think that's going to unlock a lot of value for our shareholders. But the investments that we've made in the business, which I don't think are fully understood or appreciated,
right.
And I think part of that is because of the market backdrop. You get measured of like, hey, well, if food service, our customers are down right now, but we've been very resilient to make critical strategic investments of what is going to create long-term value in a period that I think we're going to see the pace of innovation change in our industry like we have not done before. And we're far ahead of the competition, I believe, with the investments we've made and with the scale and size of the platform that we had created for the 20 years up to that point, right? So I think it's a very transformational period that we're going through, right now in all three platforms, but in our core commercial food service business. So that excites me. We're engaged with our customers in a very, very different way than we ever have been before, including our innovation centers where we're kind of the place to go. And that really transforms their view of us and how we engage with them. Yeah, so I think it's for a guy who's been here for a long time, it is the most exciting chapter of the company.
That was Tim FitzGerald, CEO of the Middleby Corporation. Their symbol is MIDD. They're undertaking several value creation initiatives, including the food processing spin, a residential JV with 26 North that'll allow Middleby to still participate in the upside while monetizing part of that asset. And they have an overriding emphasis on repurchasing shares, which management and the board obviously see as the highest return opportunity. It's an exciting time and I think a real opportunity for the valuation to be re-rated. I'm Tom Ryan. I'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.